Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. The second round of the NFL playoffs are underway with two games scheduled for today. Sunday kicks off with the AFC West champion and number 2 seed in the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs, hosting the Houston Texans, who advanced after defeating the Buffalo Bills in a thrilling overtime first-round game last week. The Chiefs come in as a 9.5-point favorite with a game total of 51.5 points. And some news about this game: the winner of this game will be hosting the AFC Championship game next week, as the Baltimore Ravens were defeated by Tennessee last night. Really surprising victory, but there was a lot on the line for this game anyhow. But now the winner of this game will host the AFC Championship. But before we unpack this game, I want to share the numbers that are fantasy relevant to the Showdown contest itself. There have been 125 Showdown contests throughout the 2019 NFL season, and that includes the 4 playoff games last week. These Showdown contests have an average winning score of 131.58, with an average winning captain score of 42.72. Since the average captain score represents 32% of the average winning score, I focus a lot of attention to the captain's position. With that being said, the captain's position breaks down as follows through these 125 contests. The underdog running back has been the captain in the winning lineup more than any other position, 25 times for 20%. The favorite quarterback has been the captain in the winning lineup 22 times for 18%. Favorite wide receiver, 21 times for 17%. The favorite running back has been the captain in the winning lineup 16 times for 13%. And the underdog wide receiver has been the captain in the winning lineup 16 times for 13%. The underdog quarterback, 10 times for 8%. The favorite defensive special teams has been the captain in the winning lineup 6 times for 5%. And the underdog tight end has been the captain in the winning lineup 3 times for 2%. The underdog kicker has been the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 2%. The favorite tight end, 2 times for 2%. And the underdog defensive special teams has been the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 2%. I also combine this by positions, whether they were the favorite or underdog, and it breaks down as follows. Running backs have been the captain in the winning lineup more than any other position, 41 times for 33%. That's 1/3. Wide receivers, 37 times for 30%. Quarterbacks have been the captain in the winning lineup 32 times for 26%. All others represent 15 winning captains for 12%. Another number that interests me a lot with the Showdown contest itself is the overall one-loss record for the winning captain, meaning the captain, did their team win or lose the game? And it's pretty compelling, the numbers. The overall one-loss record of the winning captain, their team, is 89 wins and 36 losses for a win percentage of 71%. And I broke that down by position as well. Running backs are 32 wins and 9 losses for a 78% win percentage. Wide receivers, 23 wins and 14 losses for 62% win percentage. And quarterbacks, 23 wins and 9 losses for a 72% win percentage. Now, in addition to these numbers, I also separated the playoffs so we can make a comparison of the playoffs with the regular season. And this is just based on the 4 games. Last week, I'll update it. And next week, when we do the conference championship showdown videos, we'll have updated numbers for the 8 playoff games. But through the first 4 playoff games, the underdog running back was the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 50%. The underdog wide receiver was the captain in the winning lineup 1 time for 25%, and the underdog quarterback was the captain in the winning lineup 1 time for 25%. And since we know that, and I'll get to this in a minute, since we know that 71% of the time the captain comes from the winning team, that all these underdogs would make sense, because 3 of the 4 teams that won last week were all underdogs on the road. And the overall straight-up one-loss record in the playoffs for the winning captain was 3 wins and 1 loss, which is a 75% win percentage. Running backs were 2-0 for 100%. Wide receivers were 1-0 for 100%. And quarterbacks 0-1, which was Josh Allen for 0. Now, if we compare these numbers, these are some of the comparisons, and I thought they were really interesting. The 125 Showdown contest winning score was 131.58. The 4 playoff games winning score was 115.98. Obviously there's a 15-point difference there. We'll see if that evens out even more when we add the 4 divisional playoff games to this. However, the winning captain score for the 125 Showdown contest of 42.72 compared to 44.16 for the 4 playoff games is only a 1.44 difference in the captains. The captain percentage, as far as what part of the winning lineup for the 125 Showdown contest, the captain's percentage is 32.47% of the overall winning score. And for the 4 playoff games, it's 38.08%, which is just a 5.61 point difference. Now, these are, these are the interesting numbers. The underdog running back through the 125 Showdown contest was the number 1 position through the season, and it represented 20%. In the playoffs, the underdog running back was the captain for the winning line more than any other position, 50%. So the underdog running backs are one that you really want to focus on. And the one loss, this is the number that I'm really interested in. The one loss percentage for the captain through the 125 Showdown contest was 71%, 89 wins and 36 losses. In the playoffs so far, it's 75%. So those are real close. The captain from the winning lineup is coming from the winning team over 70% of the time, whether it be in the regular season or the playoffs. Now, do these numbers unlock the mystery of today's Texans and Chiefs game? Absolutely not. But what they do give us are some numbers that we can use in our overall process to help give us an edge, which in the end, that's all we're looking for is an edge. Some of the main takeaways, which I just mentioned, obviously the underdog running back has been the captain in the through the regular season and in the playoffs more than any other position. So that's a position that you want to look at. The captain comes from the winning team over 70% of the time, whether it was on the through the regular season or the playoffs. Those are just some of the numbers that you can use and that I like to use in my overall process. Now, my overall process involves, first, I try to take a stand. Who do I think is going to win the game? What is the path to victory? Is it their running game, their passing game? What are the weaknesses? I look at the matchups of each team. I look at previous history, especially if they played each other recently this year. And I factor all those things in, and then I get a pool of players that I think support that path to victory. And now that pool of players, I identify some players that I think have a path to being the highest scoring players. And then I build my lineups around that player, and I try to correlate them. Correlation is the biggest part of putting your lineup together. Some of the things I do, if I have a captain in the or if I have my quarterback in the captain spot, I like to have at least 2 targets in the flex spot. If I have a wide receiver in the captain spot, I like to have the quarterback in the flex spot. It just makes sense. The wide receiver is not going to go off unless the quarterback throws him the ball. There are some quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson that you can run without targets. Last night, obviously, when they got behind, the guy threw for 365 yards, had 143 yards rushing. So adding a couple of his targets along with his rushing floor was the way to go yesterday in the Showdown contest. It was hard to get away from him in the captain spot, and I certainly would have never, as I mentioned in my video, never faded him. But that's one of the quarterbacks through the regular season that I didn't mind not having a target with. For the most part, I want my quarterbacks. The quarterbacks in this game, I do want to have a couple targets with them. And so as I was saying, when I'm building my lineups, also you have to have a player or two from the other team. If you think this team, if you built your lineup around this captain that you think is going to win the game, obviously how's the other team going to be competitive or stay in the game? Is it going to be a close game? The running back plays a big part, or are they going to be so far behind that some receivers are the ones that you want to have in your flex position? And I consider all those things, and that's how I build my lineups. Now, with this game, these two teams met in Week 6 with the Texans defeating the Chiefs in Kansas City 31-24. There's some interesting takeaways from that game. Deshaun Watson threw for 280 yards and 1 touchdown, and he also rushed for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he scored the most fantasy points, which was 31, by a quarterback all year against the Chiefs. In that same game, Mahomes threw for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. Some other interesting players in that game. Running back Carlos Hyde ran for 116 yards on 26 carries and had a touchdown. And running back Duke Johnson for the Texans added 34 yards rushing and 1 touchdown, and also 2 receptions for 20 yards. In that game, Tyreek Hill gashed the Texans for 80 yards on 5 receptions and 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs obviously come in rested, but the weakness of both these teams are the ones that were exposed in Week 6, with the one difference being that the Chiefs didn't expose the rush defense of the Texans, who come in with a number 27 DVP versus the running back position, number 31 DVP versus the quarterback, and number 21 DVP versus wide receiver and tight end. The Chiefs defense gave up an average of 11.5 points per game during their 6-game winning streak to close out the season. The Chiefs defense is number 13 DVP versus the quarterback, number 29 DVP versus the running back, and number 2 versus the wide receiver. And the Chiefs have a really hard time defending running backs that catch passes out of the backfield. If the Texans could get running back Carlos Hyde going and keep the offensive opportunities for Kansas City low, this game could be close and similar to the first game. I honestly don't think the Texans will be able to control this game like they did in Week 6. I do think that the Chiefs want to get running back Damian Williams going, who only had 1 carry and 1 reception in the first meeting. And in the 2 playoff games last year, the Chiefs got him going, and he had, I believe it was 33 points in one game and 29 in the other game in their against the Colts and the Patriots. The Texans are vulnerable at a lot of different areas, which I think the Chiefs exploit, forcing Watson to abandon the run and be forced to the air in a come from behind game script. This game has the highest total of the 4 divisional playoff games, and I think Kansas City comes out firing, looking to host the AFC Championship game next week. Since I'm going with building my lineup around the Kansas City win, I'm going to build my lineup in this manner. First off, I'm going to go with Damian Williams. Oh, wait a minute. We got a questionable tag here on Williams. I'm not sure what's happened here. I don't see any news here. I'm not sure why they have a questionable tag. Definitely keep an eye on that, guys. That wasn't there when I worked on this last night. I don't see any notes. Tyreek Hill's got a questionable tag. I don't know what this. Oh, you know what, guys? This was the wrong. For some reason, it threw up the wrong lineup. That was really going to throw off my my video here. Let's go with create a lineup. Not sure why it went. Draftkings was having some problems last night too with their site. So let's see here. Let's go NFL. No, not soccer. Let's go NFL. Showdown. And Houston versus Kansas City. Continue. I'm not sure why that generated the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's see, taking a minute to load too. There we go. And Travis Kelce has the questionable tag, and let's take a look at that real quick. I don't have actually Sunday's playoff game. The Texans, after practicing in a limited fashion this week, per Adam Tesher of ESPN, Coach Reed indicates Kelce's knee injury is more of a bruise than anything. Meanwhile, Herbie Teopia, the Kansas City Star, noted there doesn't appear to be. So now let's go to my. Gosh, what is going on here? Just bear with me in a second. We'll get to this lineup building. Here we go. Okay, so Damian Williams at running back, and he's probably going to be popular. And we know that running backs appear in the winning lineup in the captain's position more than any other position. The underdog running back, obviously, but running backs in general. The captain comes from the winning team. I believe that the Chiefs are going to win this game. So I'm going to build my lineup around Damian Williams. I'm going to go with the Chiefs defense. I'm going to go with the field goal kicker for the Chiefs, Butker. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Kenny Stills. That leaves 200 on the table. I really like this lineup, and I'll tell you the correlations that I have here. Obviously, running back Damian Williams. I like the Chiefs' defense. If Damian Williams gets going and the Chiefs build a lead, obviously Deshaun Watson will have to abandon the run and go to the passing game, and we know that the passing game is where we can generate our defensive scoring opportunities due to sacks, sack fumbles, pick sixes. All those things can be generated off of passes, and if they get too far behind and have to become one-dimensional in throwing, playing in this playoff atmosphere on the road at Arrowhead could be a tough day for Deshaun Watson. I like Kenny Stills, even though he's got a questionable tag as well. But he's expected to be back to full strength of receiver for the first time since week 16. Now, Will Fuller is due back, but he's coming back off of a groin injury. I don't have a lot of trust in Fuller this week. He could go out and play the whole game, or he could go out and run one or two plays, and the groin flares up, and then he's out of the game, and you're stuck with a zero if he hasn't done anything. I'll have some shares of him, but I don't really trust that. Make sure you check the injury report. It should be out at 1:30. 1:30 today. So make sure you check that. Especially all these players with questionable tags. And you never know. Player in warm-ups or something gets stomach flu or something flares up, and all of a sudden they're ruled out. I mean, you got Kelce with a questionable tag, Fuller with a questionable tag, tight end Darren Fells with a questionable tag, which I had some interest in him as well. He had a hip problem. Fells, Fuller, and Stills, but the trio are trending towards suiting up for the divisional showdown in Kansas City. You can see a situation. I mean, there's no next week if you lose. So if they can get out there, it's just how much are you going to be able to get out of them. So, but this is the lineup that I built. It only left 200 on the table, but I really like it. I'm not sure how contrarian it'll be. I know Damian Williams' ownership numbers for other contests are up there, and but I have a lot of interest in him, and based on what he did last year in the playoffs, what he did last few games of this season, and it became more of his running back. He became the lead running back compared to the committee that they had through most of the year. The first game against the Texans, as I mentioned, he only had 1 carry and 1 reception. He did have a touchdown in that game, and I think he left the game after that. So, but I really like this lineup, and that's utilizing the numbers that I just went through with you guys, and I showed you my process and correlation, and I feel like with Mahomes, Butker, the Chiefs defense, and Williams, I've covered most of their scoring, most of the ways that they can score in this game. Then I have Watson with one of his targets, and I just really like this lineup a lot. So as I always do, I utilize an optimizer. Now the main reason for me to use an optimizer is to show you and me the different randomizations of the players that I like. I build most of my lineups manually, but if I'm entering like a 20 entry $1 or 20 entry quarter or something like that, and I spread my entries out over different types of contests. I do throw some in the larger GPPs. I feel like I got just as good a chance as anyone else. I play the double ups, the head to head, 50-50, and smaller tourneys, and I build my lineups that way. Obviously I don't put the same exact lineup in every contest, and I want to see the different randomizations of the players that I like, so I utilize an optimizer. And with the optimizer, when I use it for Showdown, I use very few rules because I want to see a true randomization of the players I like, and I don't want to affect it with a whole bunch of rules. I just use a couple rules, which I mentioned earlier, with quarterback and the captain, I want 2 targets. Wide receiver and the captain, I want his quarterback. Other than that, I don't use any other rules. Now, I try to only use one of the 4 between the 2 defensive special teams and 2 field goal kickers. I try to only use 1, at the most 2. I like the field goal kickers. They offer a safer floor, and I try to get the field goal kicker from the team that is has the highest implied total. They're the team that's supposed to win. Just makes sense. If they're going to score more points, have the field goal kicker from that team. And that's just my preference, how I build my lineups. So I set the minimum maximum exposures. I usually pick between 4 and 6 possible captains. I set the exposure limits to them. Say for instance, Damian Williams, I might have set his exposure to 20 to 25%. That means out of the 150 lineups that can be generated, I want him to be in 20 to 25% of those lineups. And I do that for my captains. Then I drop down to the flex positions, and I do the same thing for all those. I run it for 150. I set the optimizer to have at least 2 unique players for each lineup, and I let it go. Very rarely do I get 150 lineups with my minimum maximum exposures and the couple rules that I have. Sometimes I do, and I really don't like that, because that means either I hit 150 on the dot, or there's way more than 150 possibilities. But most of the time I don't get 150. With this game in particular, the way I set it up, it generated 133 lineups. And as I always do, I share with you guys my a couple of the lineups. Now, this was the very first one that was generated. It was Damian Williams. It was Butker, Patrick Mahomes, Carlos Hyde. Now, the optimizer had the field goal kicker from Houston, Fairbairn. Wait a minute, not Hardman. Fairbairn. And quarterback Deshaun Watson. It's pretty interesting. And it does, I mean, I don't really like the double field goal kicker, but this lineup makes sense. You have both quarterbacks, both running backs, and both field goal kickers. So you cover a lot of the ways that they can score, and This was the very first one generated by the optimizer, and it's pretty interesting. And Watson and Hyde, if they get going on the ground like they did in the first game, that could be really interesting in this type of build. It only left 200 on the table, which isn't too contrarian, I'm guessing. I see updated numbers on Showdown contest, and through the season, the average winning lineup was leaving just over $1,000 on the table. So leaving money on the table in Showdown is not a bad thing. I actually like that lineup a lot. And this was another one that was generated. That was the very first one. And this was another one that was generated by the optimizer. It had the Chiefs defense, which I'm a little bit weary of a defense in the captain spot on a game that's the highest total for the weekend. But Chiefs defense, Chiefs field goal kicker, Butker. And Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Darren Fells. How much is Fells? 4,600. And the Chiefs are vulnerable to the tight end position. And Deshaun Watson, they're number 20. I believe they're number 20. Let's see down here. Yeah, they're number 27 versus the tight end. So here you go. This is I got the Chiefs with the field goal kicker. Mahomes and Hill. Hill can definitely bust a slate, but I'm thinking if he's busting a slate, he should probably be up in that captain spot. But that would definitely limit this build, and you probably wouldn't be able to get Watson and Fells in there. And then you have Watson with the tight end. So that's interesting too. And this one left a little more on the table, 900 on the table. As I said before, leaving money on the table is not a bad thing. So there you go. That was generated by the optimizer as well. So I want to get this video posted. First, I want to thank you guys for joining me. I encourage you to please drop any opinions or comments that you may have below. Please share this video, like it, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and hit that notification bell so you can get notified when I post my next video. I've been saying this in my recent videos. I've eclipsed the 100 subscriber point, which was a big milestone for me because my expectations for this channel have definitely been exceeded, and it's all because of you guys, and I really appreciate you following me and being loyal to the channel. And as we move forward, I'm going to try to make it better, and looking to move into the NBA and some of the Major League Baseball, and then grow this channel more. But thank you to everyone who's followed me. And if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe. It's free. You don't have anything to lose. Just give me a chance. I got some really good information. I will have another video a little bit later today for the 6 o'clock game between the Seahawks and the Packers. And then I'll have the 2-game conference video sometime during the week, and then Showdown videos for each one of those games as well. So that's something to be looking for. You can also follow me on Twitter at Winning About. I try to put injury news on there and other pertinent information when I get it. Once again, don't forget the injury reports. The injury report on this game should be out at about 1:30 today. Make sure you check that because there's a lot of players with questionable tags. You want to check it anyhow. So again, thank you for joining me. I'll be back soon with the Seattle Green Bay video. My name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports. Good luck today.